Everyone, my name is Natalia Brown, and this is my social problems portfolio presentation on the topic of capital punishment and race. The topic I've chosen for my social problems portfolio is capital punishment, or the legal killing of a person as punishment for a crime, with an emphasis on the systematic racism and racial bias within the institution. I chose this topic for a multitude of reasons. This is an issue that is incredibly important to me as someone that has extensively studied criminal justice and its flaws. In fact, I have dedicated myself and my career to helping those victimized in one way or another by the United States justice system through my major of forensic psychology. While this is part of the system, the research I have done for this project has taught me to see the issue from a different perspective and acknowledge the issues plaguing the system, as well as understanding the historical context that allowed us to get to this point. The first thing I completed for this portfolio was the mind map. This was perhaps my favorite part of the project, as it was the beginning of my research and created a baseline for the rest of the work. The mind map is a way to get ideas out and connect them through a web of ideas. From my mind map, I centered my topic of capital punishment and began with a simple internet search. From there, I fell down a rabbit hole of information and came out with just as many questions as answers. This is where I gathered my initial thoughts, sources, and knowledge, and it gave me a jumping off point to gather more information. This part of the project is where I determined that there was a racial bias regarding the death penalty, particularly towards black men and other people of color. This is also where I noticed the double standard between races that committed the same crime but faced different punishments. Next, I compiled an annotated bibliography of both my scholarly and popular sources. This bibliography was a way for me to cite the sources I used throughout my research that contributed to my final artifact. These sources were very helpful for pulling together supporting evidence and statistics that contributed to my profile. Scholarly sources, such as law review journals, provided a lot of legal background information on how the death penalty has been reviewed for biases, and at one point even abolished, partially due to an apparent racial bias. The popular sources provided a historical context and a modern-day lens that greatly contributed to my understanding of this complex topic. Finally, I created my final artifact, which in this case was an infographic that provided statistics emphasizing the racial bias towards Black Americans facing capital punishment for alleged crimes. This was a culmination of all my previously acquired knowledge and research condensed into one easily digestible forum that is intended to be accessible to the average audience. The entire social portfolios project has had an immense value to me in a way that is nearly incomprehensible. Throughout this project, I have learned so much about the criminal justice and legal systems within the United States that I believe more people should have. This portfolio has led to an increased passion for educating others about their rights and the flaws within the government. While I went into this project with a little bit of background knowledge, I wasn't expecting how far back this issue stemmed and how many people it has truly impacted. I was also surprised with myself and how much information I sought out and will continue to seek out after this project is completed. I spent many hours researching, and yet I still have a sense that I barely scratched the surface of the layers and complexities that surround this issue. There are still so many questions regarding capital punishment as a whole, and in the future I would like to look further into abolition and how the death penalty has impacted other interest groups such as the impoverished, women, and disabled individuals. This is my initial mind map. As you can see, it's rather sparse. I didn't have a lot of information, and I had gathered only a couple of sources. And this is my updated mind map after completing information. You can see my final sources are all listed, and I have acquired a lot more information and specific statistics to support my argument. This is my annotated bibliography with all of the said sources, of course. And then we get down to the end, which is my final artifact, which for this I chose to do an infographic. This is titled Capital Punishment and Race. Definition: the legally authorized killing of someone as punishment for crime. Crimes punishable by death. Currently, the list of crimes punishable by death includes murder, treason, genocide, and kidnapping under special circumstances. In the past, this also included rape and robbery. Unconstitutional? In 1972, the United States Supreme Court ruled in the landmark criminal case Furman v. Georgia that the death penalty was unconstitutional because it violated the 8th and 14th Amendments with its arbitrary, capricious, and discriminatory application. It was reinstated in 1976 with Gregg versus Georgia. In cases of murder, black defendants with white victims had over 93% of conviction rates. Meanwhile, white defendants with black victims had about 6%. The death row population is over 41% black, despite black people only making up about 13% of the United States population. This is equivalent to about 1 in 4 people, or 3 times higher than average. This emphasizes the racial disparity in capital punishment. Historical context. 2,000 plus black people were killed by lynching between 1865 and 1876, and the practice continued through 1950. The systematic racism and killing of black people within the justice system is often referred to as, quote, modern-day lynching. Following the Civil War, the number of black people, particularly men, executed by the federal government increased by 487%. The period of 1900 to 1963 saw a 181% increase in the number of black men executed in the District of Columbia compared to the period of 1862 to 1899. Wrongful convictions. Within the history of the death penalty, there have been a number of people put to death that have claimed to be innocent. Later testing has allowed some of these people to be posthumously pardoned. Of the 254 exonerated people helped by the Innocence Project, a staggering 58% of the wrongly convicted were black. Rape convictions. 89% of executions in rape cases involved a black male defendant and a white female victim. There is no record in the United States of a white male receiving the same sentence for the rape of a black woman. Innocence. According to a 2022 study, innocent black people were 7 times more likely than innocent white people to be wrongly convicted of murder. That concludes my social problems portfolio presentation. Thank you for listening.